Welcome to another episode of No Investment Advice. We've got Jack Butcher in the place. What's happening, man? New hat for you.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. How are we?
No NIA or Visualized Value merch today. You're flexing a new one.
Watch this space. Yeah, we got some stuff in production.
We might have an update for you guys today.
If he's not flexing VV or NIA, I mean, you know that something else is. Yeah, Jack ain't putting something he doesn't own on his body.
And also we got here Trung Phan here today. And look, we're gonna have to kick this straight off. Trung, there's a few big pieces of news coming out. So since the last time, as it relates to Trung Phan, this time last week, you were about to hit 100K followers. You just did it. You crossed the line. You had your cake, which is a big deal.
I'll tell you what, I didn't even realize that I was joking about the Dairy Queen cake, but my buddies actually made one. Like the ones I posted on Twitter, like if you go on my Twitter feed, nobody's going to go. But if you do, there's a picture of a Dairy Queen cake. My buddy literally dropped it off. And I'm like, whoa, this is like really well done. And it looked like they'd screen printed with the ice, the icing. It was amazing, man. The cake was delicious. It was like cookies and cream. It was so good. I'll tell you the funny story about that is I woke up that morning and last episode we talked about Call Her Daddy. So I wrote a thread. Basically everything I said on that podcast, I just turned into a thread because I did the same research. And that thread is what got me. I knew I was going to get to 100,000 because when you put a thread like that, I'm like, that's good for probably 1,000 or two follows. But freaking Dave Portnoy from Barstool retweeted it.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Took me to the end. So that's what makes it amazing. And later that day,
cut clip, son.
Later, we should cut it. And later that day, he got suspended by Twitter for. It was hilarious. He got suspended by Twitter. The reason I found out is because I literally want to bask in the glory of seeing my tweet on his feed. And I go there, his profile suspended. And I started Googling, I started Twitter searching what happened to him. So somebody was making fun of Penn, basically saying like, hey, you guys lost Call Her Daddy. What are you going to do for Penn shareholders? And Portnoy goes, just sell your stock, man. If not, I'll like put my nuts on your head. Yes. So apparently he got suspended for writing, I'll put my nuts on your head. And
it took it literally.
Yeah, they put him back. And I mean, I'm wired right now. I know I saw some of the YouTube comments were talking, oh man, Trung's like, oh, wired. It's like, first of all, I got Red Bull. I just did a 5-kilometer run. It was really 3 kilometers because I walked the last 2 kilometers. And then
Dude, well, I think another reason you're wired is the second thing I was going to say is we're going to have to pour one out today, man. We got the Red Bull ready and we got my massive coffee today because we're going to have to RIP Fiat Fan today. It's
Yo,
a big
done,
deal
buddy. Pour out that water, bro. Fiat Fan is dead and gone.
So let's talk it through, man. What happened? Because like live on the podcast, you shared your screen. You're about to drop it.
So 2 episodes ago, we had Packy on. And Packy McCormick, the writer for Not Boring, all around great guy. And I was just sitting there because we've been joking about it. And I had 30,000 Canadian dollars, which is like $10 US. So do the conversion. So it's a little bit different. I think it's like 25K US. I can't remember. But just it's been sitting in this account that I've set up with Wealthsimple, which is like Canadian version of Wealthfront. And you guys told me not to buy because it looked like they custodied the ETH, right? Like I couldn't do anything with it. And you're like, oh, you're not gonna be able to do any of the fun stuff. But then the dip happens like middle of the week. I'm like, okay, if I don't buy this now, I'm never gonna buy it, right? Like I'm literally never gonna buy it. So I'm just like, okay, 15. I did my own version of mini Balaji.
You did Balaji's portfolio.
Yeah. Well, Balaji's portfolio with whatever was in that account. The rest of my portfolio does not look like Balaji's portfolio.
So you experienced your first feeling of seeing that huge drop, right? Because I think it dropped and you probably bought it around.
And then it dropped again. Yeah, I got Bitcoin at 30 or 31, and then ETH.
This is US dollars.
US, and then ETH at 18. So it definitely sold off again. Mate. And then it rebounded again. So I got the first V, man. Oh, what an experience. I've been missing out, boys.
Isn't it like, I can't remember who said this, maybe Vitalik or something. And he said, like in the stock market, if you drop 40%, it's like Black Monday or whatever. And if it drops 40% in crypto, it's like a Tuesday. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like, so it's just, I'm
messes with the emotions.
Based on, the last thing I'll add is based on what you guys said last time with hey man, you can't do anything fun with ETH if like you're using these platforms that don't let you play around with it. It's like, I'm literally never looking at this portfolio again. Like it's there. I'm going to give my wife and my kid the password to this account. It's like, don't ever look at it again. It's either going to be worth billions of dollars in 50 years or it's going to be worth nothing. So like, there's no point in even like, I don't look at prices. I don't give a shit, right? I'm like what Jack was saying. It's like, why am I going to look at the day-to-day fluctuations here? Like, I'm not going to sell it.
That's it, man. Well, anyway, congrats. And obviously not investment advice, but I know that's something you've been wanting to do yourself on your own. Yeah,
I'm probably going to keep calling in though. I got to get the fun stuff you guys talk about so I can start doing this stuff that Cuban's been up to. I want to lose everything.
So look, boys, today we're going to be talking about a lot of interesting edge of the internet stuff. So Jack's going to be sharing a bunch of crazy stuff he's been finding. We also got some fun fact fan coming up with Peter Thiel's Lord of the Roths and potentially his story on Microsoft as well. But before we do that, I just wanted to call out very high level. You know, people who follow the podcast know we follow crypto quite closely. There's been a huge drop in the last few weeks. As you mentioned, Bitcoin went below 30K for the first time in a bit of time. ETH dropped below 2K. But some positive stuff just to round up. Cathie Wood and ARK bought the dip. They've now got 8.5 million shares of the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust. They also bought a bunch of Coinbase stock. And then more importantly for me, A16Z, the leading Silicon Valley venture fund, they just announced today, we're recording on Thursday, Chris Dixon just posted, they've just raised a $2.2 billion crypto fund, number 3, which is huge. And for people who don't know,
man. These guys have been doing it for
ahead of the curve.
A decade, man. Unreal.
It's crazy. Yeah. So, and obviously they're not just buying Bitcoin and ETH and holding it. They're investing in infrastructure. They're investing in DeFi. Jack, you got a thought, mate? I can see your face.
I was just going to ask if either of you guys know how big their position is relative to their like fiat funds in crypto. Does anybody know?
I think they hold AUM is about 16 billion.
Okay, fair.
So
and their crypto funds are up at like 5 or 6 now or something altogether.
Yeah, so it's like probably 30-40%. I mean, again, not investment advice, not math advice, but the other thing about them that's interesting, I read about the information is the interesting about the crypto fund is look, we got Jack's nice dog in the back there. Is what's your dog's name?
Tenny.
Okay, amazing. Tennessee. Okay, we got you, buddy.
No. Here he is. Listeners can't see, but there you go. The YouTubers got a little visual on that.
Yeah, let's go. It's a cute dog, man.
Good lad.
Last thought on that, just want to add was so obviously Ben Horowitz and Mark Andreessen, the founders of Andreessen Horowitz, they're really hands-on with their fund. Not surprising, but apparently the crypto is very, very independent, and it's an interesting part of their fund structure. They're just like kind of do whatever they want because I mean, listen, it's working and. Chris Dixon's clearly been on the, Chris Dixon, we should mention, was one of the top bidders for Jack's NFT of his tweet that he sold.
Yeah,
for like
episode 0. We shared that on
episode 0.
Recall.
Yeah, so great stuff on that front. I'm sure we'll be talking more about it. Last thing I want to add before we jump into edge of the internet stuff was my parents have been actually watching some of these YouTubes. I've been swearing too much. So we're implementing a swear jar. Every time I swear, we're going to, we'll call $20 a swear. And then I'm going to have to donate that money. So just keep track. I know the editors will do it.
Someone in the comments has to do a trunk
someone in the comments, just tell me how many times I swore. We'll count the F word and we'll count the S word. It's just, I just let loose too much. And even my sister commented, she's like, it's too much. It's like, all right, you know what? I'm going to pump the brakes. And it's just how I talk. And it's also bad because my kid literally just parrots anything I say now. And I've had to like stop him from saying bad stuff. So I'm going to pump the brakes on swearing. And the last thing I'll mention about that was Jerry Seinfeld has a great explanation of why he never swears. He says, so he is the purest comedian you'll ever meet. He only cares about laugh. He doesn't care about, giving life lessons or pulling out some aha moments. He says that the only thing that the job's comedian is to get someone to laugh. It's the hardest job that anyone can do. And he's like, if you use a swear word to get a laugh, you've cheated, right? So if I have to use a swear word to make a point, I'm cheating. So Jerry Seinfeld, that's the new philosophy. Good Lord.
It's a clean version of Trung. Let's see how this goes. Let's see how it goes. Well, sorry to Trunk's parents. I might let fly with a couple once in a while.
You guys can swear all you want, man.
I actually, because when I worked at Charity Water, one of the rules of the office was you couldn't swear. It was kind of it was quite a big change for me. And it kind of made sense because we had all sorts of people coming in the office, like older people, young kids, and like stuff like that. It made sense, but it really made me hyper aware.
Well, who knows now? Now with Google, you probably can't swear there either. They're so woke now.
People letting it fly. So yeah, the last thing I'll say on A16Z stuff before we hand it over to Jack is obviously they're not just buying a bunch of crypto coins. Like, I don't think they even mentioned Bitcoin in the blog post, which is interesting. But they invested in infrastructure, DeFi projects, NFT projects, all the stuff that is going to be built in Web3. Essentially, they're going to be probably one of the leaders in that. So pretty exciting, and it shows a lot of validation for the space. So excited to see what happens there. And last thing, Eric Adams, the New York mayor candidate, said he wants to make New York City the center of Bitcoins with an S. Let's go, Trump.
Pump's moving back from Miami to New York.
Jack, you met him once, right?
Yeah, good dude, man. I don't know what the result of the mayoral race was, but Yang definitely didn't place, did he?
I don't think so. I haven't. It was only a day or two.
Listen, if Yang won, I would know because every Asian in North America would have gone a ping, but I didn't get the ping. So
right. I think they said it might take a few weeks, the last I read, because there's a new system because you could rank people from 1 to whatever. Anyway, so that's a real quick roundup of that stuff. But now we're going to transition into edge of the internet stuff. Jack's been sending us, first of all, his crazy shower thoughts that, he already tweets those out already, but we get like unfiltered version first.
Jack's tweets are very filtered. Jack's DMs are literally a live feed of Zero Hedge. So
that's hilarious. Red Pill Jack. That's why he's got the red hat on. Red Pill Jack today.
There you go.
Wait, Jack, I don't know how much you want to disrupt Visualize Valley's brand, but can you talk about your media diet here?
Well, Zero Hedge, I had to cut back on Zero Hedge, man. I was walking around New York City with a gas mask on in January of last year because of Zero Hedge. So, and wasn't wrong but mate, there's only so much of that you can take. I think the depth of Twitter comments is, you can get down some really deep rabbit holes off the back of any Zero Hedge-esque Twitter feed.
Right.
So, mate, it's difficult, man. Actually, here's something I tweeted out the other day is if you scroll your Twitter timeline, you're basically giving write access to your brain to anybody, right? Just imprint a thought or imprint like a trail that you start going down. And I just go through phases of, completely down the rabbit hole, completely distracted by stuff, listening to 9 hours of Michael Saylor and, that
with your son.
Just doesn't work out.
Jack, what's the second best crypto asset?
There isn't one. There is no second best.
You gotta cut the clip of stealing. What do you mean? There isn't a second, dude. Oh my god, that's
one of the best clips on the internet.
Oh, it's so good. What do you mean? There is no second best.
Yeah.
So let's get into it. Jack, I mean, what was there anything red pilly we want to drop? One thing. Go on.
Sorry, Bilal, I don't want to cut you off. I've also been told that I cut Bilal off too much, but
Jack, as of this morning, I saw a comment.
Yeah, so we might have to put a fine jar for that too. But last thing I wanted to add, because we're going to be talking about Peter Thiel later and how he made a $5 billion tax-free investment in essentially PayPal with his Roth IRA. But the reason why I bring Peter Thiel up now is Jack mentioned about the read-write access to your brain, like reading the timeline for Twitter. But I found a Twitter thread from 3 years ago. I'll post it here. We'll talk more about it maybe another time. But the thread basically goes through how a guy read all of Peter's interviews. And he's like, if you actually read the way he answers questions, he does not allow somebody to put words in his mouth. And like, he won't parrot something somebody else says. Like, he literally won't let those words come out of his mouth. Like, he won't reiterate a question or emphasize somebody's point because he's like, he knows how powerful just the act of even speaking those words are to like changing your brain. So it's really interesting. Guy literally went through all of his interviews and transcripts. It's like, Peter won't even like let the words come out of his mouth. So just to Jack's point, 100% true, man.
By the way,
Yeah.
Trung, I was going to share my screen, but since we're doing this, let's rinse it a little bit. Manish Rajpal just posted on our YouTube video 30 minutes ago, "Hey, Trung, we should not speak while someone else is speaking." I know you have ideas, man, but just let Jack speak for a while. So real-time feedback for the
I love it, man.
Anyway, it's all good. We got to harness the Trung energy, man. It's a special force. So,
Thanks,
look, so Jack, let's get straight into this, mate. You've talked about some crazy concepts with us. The first one we're going to go into is Decentralized Disney. We're going to talk about Bored Apes and also creators community and crypto after that. But do you want to start with Decentralized Disney? This was quite an interesting thought you had.
Yeah, so this is based on the mechanic that the Bored Ape project baked in from the start, which is, so you own the commercial rights to whichever ape you hold in your wallet, right? So that, say I minted an ape on day one. I paid 0.08 Ethereum for it, which at the time was $200, $250. I then own the commercial rights to that piece of artwork, and I can do with it whatever I want. So I could put it on t-shirts. I could make a little movie with it. I could turn it into a 3D character. I could rig it with, 3D rig it and sell it as a asset that you can put in a VR environment. Your creativity is the limit for what you can do with that thing. And I think the interesting thing about coming into contact with that idea and having the background that I have is there are all these people that have these just incredible commercial creative talent that are nowhere near crypto right now, because I think there is this really interesting societal divide on crypto, right? That like the creative types or the people that might lean a certain way politically sort of fire hosed with crypto FUD from every angle, right? Like Bitcoin is burning the world to its very core, and we're all going to die in 5 years unless we turn off Bitcoin and the internet. So what I think is interesting about that is that's obviously, there's plenty of people smarter than me that have debunked a lot of those environmental concerns, or at least framed them in the context of like, you have to spend energy to have to produce a result of some kind, and the industries that produce this result currently expound hundreds of times more energy, et cetera, but a debate for another day. But to talk about the creative talent that isn't involved in this space to date because of that narrative, I think we haven't begun to see the potential of these crypto incentive structures as they relate to like producing entertainment or producing media or making things that incentivize a group of people to grow the value of a franchise while they own equity in that franchise. So if you get 10,000 people that own Bored Apes, for example, and 1,000 of them are like some of the most talented writers, animators, artists, musicians in the world, then all of their contributions under that franchise grow the value of their stake in the franchise. And it's just like this, this complementary environment, this community that has commercial upside associated with their contributions. So Bored Apes is like a pretty narrow example of that, but you can imagine characters. I think Gary Vee actually has good perspective on this. I think he like really understands and has talked a lot about like the value of the equity of a character. And I think like their media and their ad clients go after brands that have like, what was it, Mr. Peanut?
Yeah.
And what was the Miracle Whip thing? Didn't that have a character as well?
Miracle Whip?
I'm not sure about
but I know what you mean, right? Mr. Peanut's such a great example. It's
yeah. So Mr. P, exactly the same idea is like, you have these things that are like, there's this unquantifiable value in culture of these things. Like if you imagine if Pokemon was owned by a collective of people instead of Corporation X, all of these people can move faster and run all these creative experiments and have this like financial upside associated with their contribution, which is different from going to the shop and buying a pack of things and opening it up and being like, oh, cool, I got this thing.
Yeah,
and
that's
like,
a big shift.
all the social connections involved in that. I was just talking to Celia before this about, you boys probably had this experience as well. Like I was into basically every collectible that came through the school playground, right? Pogs for me, Pokemon.
Oh my God, Pogs. Yeah. Magic the Gathering.
Warhammer I was into as well. You know, the little paintable characters.
Yeah.
What about the Premier League stickers, mate? Were you into that?
Oh, big time. Yeah. And the England coins, the Euro 96 coins. I had like 2 of those.
I didn't even have. Oh, that's amazing.
Oh, mate. Great collectibles. So I think this is another layer on top of that incentive thing. Is like, for me, it's like that same like hit of dopamine you got from opening the packet on in the playground where you could trade up and get a different card. But now there's like legitimate ways to make a living messing about with this stuff, which is, I think, a really interesting shift.
No, there's something that you mentioned that actually made so much sense to me. So you said there's 10,000 Bored Apes, yeah? There'll only ever be 10,000.
Mm-hmm.
So...
sorry, real quick, boys, can we just remind people for new listeners what Bored Ape is again? Because some people said they don't know some of the stuff we're talking about.
Okay, Jack, Bored Ape.
Yeah, really quick. What is Bored Apes?
So it's a generative avatar art project, 10,000 NFTs. So there are 10,000 unique characters, but they're all based off this same like aesthetic.
What do they look like?
Well, they're like, what do they look like? I don't know. They're like illustrated apes. They have all these different traits. Like, you know, some of them have freaking crowns and spacesuits, laser eyes, all this. The art is amazing. You should go and check it out. And there's varying degrees of rarity among these, among all the different iterations of the avatar. So unlike something like Pokemon, where you have like 50,000 or 500 different characters, this one is like one base ape, and then it's just kind of tweaks and
10,000 unique characters.
Correct.
What I love about this, and of just listening to you talk about decentralized Disney, and just the idea. Look, I mean, let's just call Bored Ape the analog, right? The Bored Ape cinematic universe. Like that's where it could head, right? It could be like the Marvel with 10,000 characters instead of however Marvel has, maybe call it 100 high value characters. But what's so interesting about what you said is, was Chance the Rapper the one you put in the DMs today? Somebody that tweeted about Bored Ape. Is either Chance or Wiz? But let's say
Chance was a rapper. I don't think it was Chance. It was maybe. I can check in the meantime.
Flame, mate.
Waka Flocka.
Yeah, Waka. So let's say Waka Flocka, whatever, the rapper Waka. Let's say he puts Bored Ape in his next music video. He owns the right. He can do that. But now your Bored Ape goes up in value. That's amazing. So you could get Kevin Feige, who is the world runner for Marvel. He's like, you know what? I'm going to put a Bored Ape in the next Marvel movie. Guess what happens to your Bored Ape, right? Like Jack's Bored Ape. First of all, Jack's Bored Ape is already up how many times since you first mentioned it? About 10 weeks ago?
200x or something crazy. Yeah.
All right, people.
Crazy. Yeah.
We got it. Okay.
Not investment advice.
Not investment. We literally, anything on this podcast does not reflect the views of us as investors.
Insert disclaimer. Yeah.
Total disclaimer. But when Jack first talked about about 10 weeks ago, Bored Apes have gone up 200 times in value. His Bored Apes. Again, this could entirely implode tomorrow, but the illustrative example here being to kind of wrap a bow on Jack's decentralized Disney kind of thesis is now there's this Bored Ape universe of characters. And if the right people start putting them for commercial uses, everyone wins, which is incredible. So tell me what you think about this next statement I'm going to make, if I'm wrong or right. But going back to your initial kind of point of, there are a lot of creative types, call them Hollywood types maybe, that are being scared off about crypto, Bitcoin, all these energy stories. It's a scam. It's used for money laundering, all that, all the FUD. So they're not being involved in something where literally everyone can win, right?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think it will be similar to the internet narrative, right? Where the technology kind of takes a back seat to the mechanic. You don't really think of, like, the internet is such an entrenched technology at this point, or e-commerce is such an entrenched practice technology that you don't say, I'm going to go on an e-commerce website in the same way you don't say, like, I'm going to contribute to an NFT project. It's like, it's just the economics of it are just going to change, and it'll be part of culture if it plays out that way. And my thesis is it will. Another point, as you explained that popped in my head is, you have this idea of the creator economy, which right now is like, you have to go out and build your own brand from scratch, right? You're competing for attention with the likes of Trung Phan, Dave Portnoy. Like, you building this thing on your own, and it's the network effects and the power laws and all of those things are incredibly difficult to get to the top of and be like, get that activation energy and like the escape velocity that you need to really like get it big enough. But if you can attach yourself to a project like this as a creator, say you're a 3D illustrator,
yeah,
you could just tap into the Bored Ape community and say, hey, I'm doing commissions of everybody's. Hey, I've seen this happen. You have great talent. You have 10,000 customers baked in, and they all want to support you if you're doing the right thing, because there's this positive sum result as you produce more work, as you like spread the network effect of the project. So I think it does a few things. Like, these new economic incentives will really shift around like the approach a lot of people take to working on the internet, and it will bring more people into the fold than, hey, you have to build this unique business by yourself in order to achieve economic freedom. I don't know if that's going to be the case once these things hit critical mass.
You mentioned to us in our DM chat that a lot of this happens in a Discord channel.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, a Discord server. Okay, so all these people involved in the Bored Ape community, all this is happening in this Discord.
Yes, it's remarkable. I think that's pretty much the method or mode of communication for a lot of, especially crypto projects. But that could be a whole other episode, like the nuance of Discord versus like a Slack. It feels
Bilal,
like play.
let's do that, man. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, Bilal, what are your thoughts on everything?
Yeah, no, I'm just listening. It's really interesting, man. I mean, I think the way I remember I think you tweeted something like NFT projects with commercial rights to characters are like a decentralized Disney, and I was quite a lot to unpack, because it's like it sounds super simple, but when each part has its own thing. It's NFT projects, commercial rights, characters, and then Disney. And it's for people who don't even know Disney's full story, like they've got so many, they're an incredible company, and the amount of stuff they've done is like being like an incredible example of how to take this intellectual property and take it to another level. And if you think of the theme parks, the TV programs, the merch, all the stuff, and that was a great case study. But if you're seeing now in the future, there's potential for people like Jack, or anyone who's listening who's interested, to say, oh, I'm interested in this world. Let me first of all get involved with the community first. Imagine you could do that with Disney like 50, 100 years ago, whenever it was popping off.
Yeah,
that's really cool. And then if you could say, oh, well, I start to understand the community, people are collaborating, they're doing all these fun things. Here's my skill set. I'm going to bring something to the table. And now I have the upside, right? Like we talked about that a lot last episode, around the shift we're seeing from people just promoting stuff to having actual upside. So it's all these things kind of converging. So it's really interesting, man. I mean, I just see so many, like when you first told me about Bored Apes, I was like, this looks kind of cool, but I didn't know enough about the community. Obviously, it was still just starting off. But now just seeing the amount of people who've been involved, like even this week, Alexis Ohanian, the founder of Reddit, who offered Trung a job live on Twitter, by the way, which is funny. So yeah, he just looks like he's got involved. He's obviously a big investor as well in the space. So it's just like there's people like him, and then you've got people from culture like Waka Flocka Flame, who's going to make a Look Ma No Hands version of Bored Apes, right? Like you might throw it in a music video at some point. So like there's all this stuff that's like converging, and it's all stuff we're interested in. So I don't know, man. It sounds really interesting.
And I think there are going to be so many .com bubble parallels too, right? So there's going to be, you can see it now. Like if you want to try and time the next Bored Ape thing, like everybody saw that come out, and then there's a 3 or 4 week lag time for everybody to copy it and do like the low effort version of it.
We just didn't listen. We weren't listening. We're not listening. Jack is just preaching here. Not investment advice.
No. And then you picked the wrong one. A good friend of mine, we had this analogy. In the gold rush, you travel west, and the difference between your family getting generational wealth and someone else's family getting generational wealth.
It's literally one plot.
The location of the hole that you dug. Right? Yeah. Someone next to you is destitute because they dug in the wrong spot.
Oh my God, dude.
Yeah.
Well, actually, Jack, that's a good thing to bring up, because the first thing you talked about was the kind of FUD or the kind of negative press cycles that go through all of this. And there's a lot of parallels to the dot-com boom and bust, right? Like 2000, whatever happened. And I kind of just see two types of people in the conversations I have. And I don't think either of them are necessarily proved out to be right or wrong yet. But people like, do you remember pets.com and, you know, all the things that were worth crazy amounts of money and then completely dropped, which is a valid point, because there's definitely elements of that in crypto. And then there were like Amazon and then these other big things that came out and kind of hung around for the 2000s. And there was real infrastructure being built. And there were even, I remember doing my dissertation on e-commerce. And even then, it was like 2005 or whatever. And I remember looking at the numbers then, it was 10% e-commerce penetration. And I was just thinking, like, how is it only 10%? I thought we were already in the future. And then if you fast forward to 2021, I think the number is only 25%. Or something like that. Maybe it's up.
And it all happened because of the pandemic, right?
Exactly.
Toby Lucky, Shopify CEO, said they pulled e-commerce penetration up by like 10 years.
5 years, yeah, exactly. So I see those parallels, and now because we've all had some experience in seeing some of the cycles, you can be a bit more nuanced about it and say, okay, is Bitcoin going to be that base layer of this new system? Is Ethereum going to be the base layer of Web3, or, you know, the settlement layer or whatever? Or is it going to become MSN, Yahoo, AOL, like that vibe? And we don't know the answer yet, right? So that's kind of what people are betting on. And then you've got, like, obviously all the rug pulls and the real Ponzi schemes that exist in there too, because when people are making that amount of money, there's going to be some scammers in there too.
Some deviants.
So, yeah. So anyway, I guess my approach anyway.
If only there was a fund that would invest $2.2 billion into this type of stuff.
Exactly. But yeah, I guess my approach has just been stay as close to it as I can, be objective, not try to be like a maximalist in any way. And if like I said a few episodes ago, if the facts change, like, I'm happy to change my own personal thesis on it. But at the moment, like, there's so much interesting stuff being built that it's hard to not be kind of excited by it. So Jack, was there anything else on the Decentralized Disney before it kind of ties into Bored Ape stuff?
Yeah. I think there's basically two sides to this. The next couple points we have in the notes, one is like the pure economics play of it. And then the second, I think, bring the second point up, which is we should put this in the show notes. But basically, these guys articulated this so incredibly well. What we just talked about, this one pull quote, Fred Ersham, who was a co-founder of Coinbase, who's now like big Web3, Ethereum, like creator economy, crypto or community. And I'll just read this pull quote where he wrote this, or there's an interview and the transcript reads, "Investing becomes a team sport that you play with your friends on the internet. What's exciting is people now understand that crypto is the right stack for doing that. Crypto is inherently social and the legacy financial system is not." So
that's a great point.
Yeah, amazing. Even if like 999 in 1,000 projects go to zero, these mechanics and these like behaviors are being baked, right? And there will be successful examples of these mechanics implemented. And something like Bored Apes is just, you have more of a chance, I think, or you have more information with which to make a decision than something like a pets.com, for example, because you can go and sit in the Discord, watch people talk about it. You could see people with huge networks adopt it. And then you just basically run in that calculation in your head. Like, is this, you know, which direction is the trend going in? It's like you're trading the story essentially. But in a lot of ways, there's just even if the monetary gain is not that significant in the end, like experiencing this dynamic and learning this like shift in behavior, I think if that's something that you're inherently interested in, is a worthwhile, the financial exposure is worth it to get the understanding of this new dynamic. Exactly. So I'm definitely not like, this is not a retirement strategy by any means. But the information that you'll get from it is going to contribute, I think, to your competitiveness in the economy in general. So, yeah.
Well, let's talk about how did you learn about pets.com, right? They spent $2 million on a Super Bowl ad, and then you get these really fluff stories
right.
Business Week and Forbes and Fortune and credulous people on TV making a pronouncement that this is the future versus, like you said, you go in the Discord server yourself, you buy a Bored Ape if you can, and then you get to see the dynamics around whether or not this could work. And even if it blows up, not to say that you suggested it would, but you still learn. It's like, oh, I'm seeing now how something can come off the ground, right? And
so they've launched another collection called Bored,
they being Bored Ape.
Dog Kennel Club or something, which is like these tokens that you get as a holder of an ape. So everybody that had an ape in their wallet was airdropped.
Oh my God.
I love it.
I got 8 apes in the wallet. So you get 8 dogs, and then the artwork gets revealed a week later. So you don't know what you're getting until tomorrow, but you had it from last Friday. So it creates this crazy
marketing genius.
I love your grin right now, man.
Smart this
it's like a kid in the playground with his pot collection.
Okay, hold on a second. Let's add this. Can we pull up your most valuable ape? Can I roast your most valuable ape right now?
Yeah. Let me pull it up.
Okay,
you can share your screen, mate.
All right.
Let me roast Jack's most valuable ape.
All right, you ready, boys?
All right, how many?
Here's
my goodness.
Oh my God, this is incredible. Wait. So we should have been showing this the whole way through because as soon as you're on this screen, it just explains
Jack,
this whole world.
Now, right? You're saying if you're involved in Bored Apes, even if it doesn't financially go to the moon, you are watching how to create hype. You're watching how to bring something into existence by winning mind share, winning the attention economy, right? Oh my goodness, man. How excited are you? What happens if one of those dogs turns into that meme, the big black dude?
It's not gonna, mate. I mean,
Woody.
that's the other interesting thing about crypto, right? Is that I think if you listen to, again, not to recommend the Michael Saylor stuff too much, but the idea that there are incentives in the network for you not to destroy it. Like they could do a rug pull on this, but
you're right. Yeah.
The amount of cultural velocity this thing has, if they were to do something stupid at this point, they'd just be like burning themselves.
Well, the market cap of Bored Ape is 130 mil, I believe. Everything?
I think so at the moment, but even since I shared that, I think it's up from there.
Okay, so call it 150, 200 million. Incredible.
So could you explain, so you got a hoodie in here too, right? That looks kind of cool on the right.
That's another airdrop thing that they did. So
my goodness. So
is that a physical hoodie they send, or is it a...
No, you can wear it in Decentralized, your character in VR.
No way.
So when they release this, everybody in the Discord goes into Decentralized wearing the hoodie, talking to each other about Bored. It's a really fascinating thing, man. And some people got the VR headsets, and I'm not that deep into the environmental stuff, but...
Well, wait till 3 episodes from now. Wait till freaking...
Yeah, I'll be logging in with the thing on.
We're going to have to do a shared VR experience on the screen.
We're going to have to buy some Oculuses. Can you show us your most valuable ape and then tell us how many ETH it's worth and give a dollar value?
Well, the market decides what it's worth, but this is the highest offer that I have on the books here.
Okay. Okay. All right, yo.
Jesus Christ.
Yo, bro, this looks like me after a weekend bender in Saigon, man. Dude.
Sorry, for people who are only listening, they can't see the screen. First of all, click the link for YouTube. The last bid 2 days ago was 10 ETH, right?
Yeah. So this is okay, Jack. I want you to explain what this Bored Ape looks like. Then I will give my version of what it looks like.
And that's worth on paper in US dollar terms over $20,000 in current prices. Yeah. And you bought that for how much was it? A few $100.
0.75.
Oh,
so
God.
Probably, yeah.
So you're
at the time. Yeah. It's 20x or something.
All right. So tell us what you think this looks like, and I'll tell you what it really looks like.
Well, you know what? I'll give you the reason I purchased it, because there's commercial rights to these apes. I went for the apes that have the branded merchandise.
Oh, dude, wait.
You mean like the hat? You mean?
So you can make this hat and you would own it? The value of it?
you could put the ape on anything. So I think it's I don't know if you could extract just the logo.
Okay.
My thesis of this is like the hype beast ape. I saw this and I'm like, this is like the streetwear dude with the double branding, the frickin' stoned eyes and the big wide smile and the cheetah print, gold earring. Mate, he's got it all.
Oh, okay. So Jack's description is it's an ape that is, his skin is a cheetah print. He's wearing a hat that has the Bored Ape Yacht Club logo and a shirt that has the skull logo for the Bored Ape. I'm looking at someone that went out last night and came home at 7 a.m. and right now needs at least 3 Egg McMuffins, a coffee, and 5 Tylenol stat, and probably a 24-hour nap. This is what I
sounds like you got some experience, Trung. It's the Bored Ape version of Trung. Yeah, man, this is I have to say, the way you just described that, Jack, obviously this is all a lot of fun, but like you really thought this through, like all the different variations. And I think you had a crazy spreadsheet, which maybe we'll be able to share. I don't know if you're able to share that.
So look, I grabbed I can share it. Yeah. But I grabbed the rest of these too. So merch. And then these two they only have 4 traits. So there's only 230 apes in the 10,000 that only have 4.
Oh my goodness.
So now I'll switch over to the spreadsheet, and this is basically somebody in the Bored Ape community built this, which essentially, stack ranks every single ape by the different statistics. So you can say
there's a rarity column.
Yeah.
There's rarity for
that must be an algorithm. That must be like some sort of
scraper
formula, right?
Okay, hold up, Jack. Could you go back to the screen of everything you own? I just want to make a comment here. So for the anybody that's not watching and just listening, so Jack here has his OpenSea.io, which is one of these Andreessen investments actually, where you get to hold your NFTs. So right here there are call it 8 Bored Apes. You got a Cyberpunk, and you got some other random NFTs here. Okay. And 8 dogs, of course. 8 dogs related to the Bored Apes.
Yeah.
There's a non-zero chance that this could be your family's retirement portfolio.
We'll see.
Actually, just to give a comparison, Jack, the CryptoPunk you got there, right? We talked about it once on the podcast, but that what's it say there? 20.25 ETH. That's was that a bid on it, or that's how much you paid?
That's how much I paid for it.
And just for people, so some of these have been auctioned off for $10 million, $12 million, right? So, and again, you might have to go back to episode 0 and 1 to hear the full idea around like why NFTs have value in the first place, because that will take the whole conversation today. But like that's kind of what a lot of the bet was for a lot of people, was like this is a newer version that's a bit more fun, the streetwear version, like you said, well, the ones you got. And then you're also betting on the community and everything else that's being built. Whereas the CryptoPunk, the value really comes from it being the first version of this sort of NFT,
which has been debated significantly. Yeah. Like it wasn't technically the first, but it's the first that got this level of adoption. And Christie's and Sotheby's are auctioning them, and all of those things. And the doors it opens to the NFT world too. Like the community of CryptoPunks is, NFT
must be deep.
Ethereum veterans from way back, and so there's a lot of reasons, I think. But yeah, there is a financial speculation aspect to these things as well, of course.
Oh, that's amazing, man!
And I just want to add one more thing, actually, on like because there's someone else listening to this who's like, all right, these are just funny pictures on the internet. Why do they have value? And that's fine if you believe that, and that's a fair point of view. But like the whole point here is this is like a new version of collectibles. Collectibles have been around since our grandparents' generation, collecting stamps and coins, us doing it in the playground in physical terms. This is the new version of that. And so you don't have to like it to appreciate like what's going on here. And that's kind of how I feel about it. Like I don't really have any. I've got like one that I was gifted, but I just like love to see what's actually happening. I mean, I might dip my toe in it eventually because it's like really interesting. The second thing I add is it's all about like limited supply, right? Like there's only 10,000 of these, right? So
it's true scarcity. Yeah,
true scarcity. In the same way, Bitcoin has 21 million coins. There's only 10,000 of these. And then there's all the fun play stuff as well. And so I don't know, man, this is really cool to get the update from you.
It's fascinating, man. Yeah, I think I'll write a lot more about it because I'm still trying to figure it out. But it's so it gives you a great economics lesson too, and like digital culture. And there's just a lot to be gained from it. And you don't have to put $100,000 into this to start learning those lessons, right? You can join the Discords and listen, and they're all free to join. Like you don't have to buy anything to get in there. So if anybody's curious about it, I would recommend before you spend any money or do anything like that, just go in and
that's actually good. That's good investment advice.
Exactly.
That's good investment advice.
DYOR.
Bilal, do we have anything else? Because I thought this would be a good
this was
retirement. Because we could talk about
let's definitely chat about that. The only thing I was going to say is, Jack, is there anything? Because I know you'd written some notes in here about the evolution from Web 1 to Web 3, which was quite interesting. Did you already speak about this?
I think that's a good wrap for the section. So this is not mine. This, I believe, was this guy Patrick Rivera, who is an engineer at Mirror, which is
Andreessen Portfolio also.
Another one, yeah. So it's like a crypto native publishing platform. So think of like WordPress, but for crypto. It's beautifully designed. They have this great mechanic for getting writers in, where they run a contest every Wednesday and people have to vote with tokens in order to bring new writers on the platform. So they've done a really clever, they've got a really clever marketing machine growing it. And he wrote this, I think it was a tweet, and he's expanded a lot on it. So definitely go find him and follow him. But he talks about Web 1 being information links. So Wikipedia, universities, like just get information, put it on the internet. Web 2 is social links. So that's your Facebooks, your Instagrams, your MySpaces, where people are starting to have, build relationships with one another via the internet. And then Web 3 is economic links. It's not, this is additive, not, doesn't replace everything.
Not replacing
before it. So economic links become, you can own a fraction of something, or you get upside in something like the contribution that you make to a decentralized organization, or a piece of content that you produce that receives X number of impressions. There's just a much more fluid relationship between what you produce and what you receive in return. And there's still a ton of friction in Web3 now. Like the on-ramp is not easy for a lot of people. You have to go and buy your Ethereum on Coinbase and set up a MetaMask wallet, then move the money over, then, authenticate that on all these different platforms. And it's growing despite that friction. So that's another reason I'm kind of fascinated by it is, wow, people go to this trouble to buy a cartoon of a monkey. And, man, it's,
that's its own type of proof of work. That's a different type of proof of work, right?
Yeah, what people are willing to do to get involved in something, I think, is a good signal for where it's going. So,
and actually, Jack, one of the things you said that's always kind of stuck with me is, I forgot the exact phrase, but essentially, once everyone's figured something out, that's where like a lot of the opportunities already gone away. And so, like, if you're the sort of person who's listening to this, that's been so curious that you're connecting your web wallet and you're like, what's MetaMask, and doing all this crazy stuff early on, that normally is a really great thing, obviously, for learning. But also, if you're like an entrepreneurial person and you're like, well, how can I basically benefit from this or contribute to this, however you want to see it? Like if you just think of those layers in Web 2, which were social and mobile, obviously kind of pushed it to the next level too. There's going to be all of those new things, like the new version of the App Store, the new version of iOS versus Android, like the closed system versus open system. There's going to be the eBays and the verticalized versions of a big auction place. So we're already seeing that play out, right? Like I don't know enough about this, but OpenSea to me kind of feels like quite a broad NFT platform, and then you've got like more verticalized versions, and they can make features and stuff like that specific to that vertical. So yeah, man, it's just it seems like if A16Z and others are investing this much into it, and it's one of the 4 or 5 big sectors, there's just so many things that are still to be built. And whether that isn't building stuff through code, but it's explaining things, because I think that's one of the hardest things in this space, is really breaking down all the jargon and saying, well, what's the use case of this? Why is this even useful in the first place? And why, how do I define this in simple terms and use analogies? So maybe you're someone listening and you're like, oh, I'm actually good at communicating. Maybe that's another way you can kind of get involved.
That was fantastic.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, man. That was really cool. So yeah, edge of the internet stuff. People have been asking for it, and this was definitely down the rabbit hole.
Jack, just to listen.
Delivering.
If people aren't familiar with Jack Butcher, he runs a 7-figure course giving people exactly what they want. So if people wanted edge of the internet, and you came here for edge of the internet, and you didn't get it, if you didn't think that you just got edge of the internet, this is the wrong podcast for you.
Yeah.
He's hanging out, man, on the edge of the internet.
Go back to the center.
All right, we got the next section. Let's move on to Fun Fact Fan. Wifey approved. Wifey approved name.
Okay. Yeah, that's I literally just dropped so many random facts throughout the day. It's just like, that's my nickname, Fun Fact Fan.
So I mean, it's Fun Fact Fan, but it's really just like a couple things that we wanted to explore today. One is Peter Thiel's Lord of the Roths. And then Microsoft just passing $2 trillion market cap. So depending on time,
we'll go through those quickly because I know we got some reader questions. So I'll just go through those super quickly.
Let's do Peter Thiel. I think that's probably worth us talking about.
ProPublica got their hands on a bunch of tax documents, and about I think either 10 days or 2 weeks ago, they released something, a big report, a big splash report that was like Warren Buffett and Bill Gates and Elon Musk or whatever. These billionaires, rich people in the world, they don't pay very many taxes. A lot of people are just like, hey man, like we kind of already knew this. This is like not a huge revelation. And I actually kind of looked at it and I also kind of rolled my eyes like, man, we already know this is like, they're not getting taxed because they don't have any income, right? It's the way the tax system's set up. They're definitely gaming it. It's all legal. It's tax avoidance versus, tax evasion. It's some tomfoolery. Like instead of like selling the shares and having a taxable event, a lot of billionaires will just borrow money, right? They'll go to Goldman and be like, if Jeff Bezos goes to Goldman and say, hey, I want you to lend me $10 billion against my Amazon shares. They're like, yeah, sure. Like Amazon's as good as gold, right?
Wait, could we just explain that for people? Because this is quite a big point. Like basically rich people at that level, they don't necessarily, if you've got $1 billion worth of Amazon stock.
Oh yeah, if you have $1 billion worth of Amazon stock, and let's say you're Jeff Bezos, you have way more than $1 billion, you have tens of billions. Your taxable event on Amazon stock would be if you were to sell it, which he does. He has a selling schedule, but a way for him to avoid taxes without having to pay capital gains would be just to borrow against his shares as collateral, right? Because you could
pay like less than 1% in interest.
Right? It's because Jeff Bezos is good for the money, and if not, you have Amazon shares. So that's a way for them. A lot of rich people to not have income, right? They don't have to declare income; they just pay interest instead. But so this big report comes out. A lot of the criticism of that report was we kind of already all knew this. And the other part of the criticism was the question of, okay, you got your hold on these kind of private tax documents. Should you even be making them public? I'm fine with it. It's not the end of the world. Chamath on the All In podcast is like, you know what? We should just make everything public. In Scandinavia, all the tax records are public, right? You can look up anyone I don't know if it's Canada. I think it's Sweden. You can look up anyone, or it's either Sweden or Norway, and you know how much they make and how much they pay in taxes. So that was kind of the criticism with ProPublica's piece. But this morning, they dropped one on Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel was a PayPal founder, and now just kind of like the first outside check into Facebook. He turned 500,000 in Facebook into $1 billion, and now just co-founded Palantir. Super, super successful investor, biggest think boy in the Valley, known for his contrarian thinking. But this ProPublica piece, it was actually pretty interesting. So we knew about this story where Peter Thiel had put money into a Roth IRA, which is a retirement vehicle, which is made for the middle-class Americans. the mechanics of it, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds, but essentially you can put after-tax dollars into this retirement account and just let it grow for decades. And then you can withdraw at, I think, 59 and a half years old. So 59 years and 6 months. Any time then or after, you can withdraw the money from this account. And it's non-taxable because the money going into it are after-tax dollars. So this is where the ProPublica piece really peels apart what Peter Thiel did. And I'm going to have to agree with him. It is quite sketchy.
One other thing, that you can direct those dollars in various directions while they're assigned.
While they're in the account. Right. Yeah. Okay,
and most people don't do that though, right? Because most people open a Vanguard, like I have one, and I have a Vanguard account. I buy the S&P 500.
You never look back.
Yeah, but there's a way that I think it's called a self-directed IRA, and you can go and buy crypto. You can invest in companies. You can buy gold bullion like Jack used to do, and do all that sort of crazy stuff. So, from my understanding, that's what he used in this case, right?
Right. I want to. Sketchy is not the right word. What people are questioning the piece about the ProPublica report is there's two segments. Number one is this retirement vehicle is clearly made for the middle class, right? It's like the intent. I think the average amount in one of these Roth IRAs is $36,000. I think that's what ProPublica said. 30,000, 30 to 40,000. Peter Thiel has $5 billion in there. It is non-tax. When he hits 59 years and 6 months, he could take out that $5 billion, untaxable. But the way it was structured, this is where the questions start coming in. I read through it, and this is not finalized. I'd probably have to do deeper research to read it again. But I think what happened was this. He bought $1.7 million shares of PayPal at 0.0001 or whatever decimal place, it gets you to $1,700 because the limit for Roth IRA at the time was a $2,000 post-tax contribution. So he basically got 1.7 million shares of PayPal. So the question now becomes, was the accounting and valuation of those shares reflective of $1,700, right? This is where the controversy comes in, because shortly after the founding, or he was given these shares, they went through a number of investments. I think Nokia invested in them. They raised money from venture. And the valuation of those shares was not $1,700, right? It was like, I think they raised at $5 million, and then they valued at $10 million. And those shares should have been whatever it is. Those shares are more than $1,700. So that is where the kind of controversy is coming into play. So was the valuation of his initial contribution to that Roth IRA kind of correct? And if it wasn't, he's been able to, what Jack brought up, self-direct, tax-free, hundreds of millions and now billions of dollars wherever he wants, right? And a piece that, and the ProPublica, we can just joke about some stuff. They call it Lord of the Roths because Peter Thiel loves Lord of the Rings. I think Clarion is his hedge fund, is named after like a gem or something from Lord of the Rings. But pretty catchy title. And if you read through, it's pretty funny. They stick to the analogy. There's like a really funny segment. They're like, there's more money in Peter Thiel's Roth than you'll find in like Saruman's lair and all the dragons and gold there. And I was like, man, good job, guys. Like,
nodding out, sounds like.
Good for you for sticking to the analogy. But yeah, so that was a big one that dropped today. So to summarize, is Peter Thiel has $5 billion sitting in a Roth IRA that will not be taxed when he hits 59 and a half. The controversy around that was whether or not the initial contribution was undervalued, just significantly undervalued, maybe even a way that is fraudulent. I don't know if fraud's the right word, but like questionable. And then the reason why I found it interesting was this is so much different than the one ProPublica dropped 2 weeks ago, which was just kind of hand wavy and like, okay, well, we kind of all got that. Like, is this the best you have? It's like this one is like, actually, this one I bet is going to hit pretty hard because it's just such a clear misuse. Not just misuse, but this is not the spirit of what this product was made. And they also found that I think Buffett has 250 million in one of these Roth IRAs. So, the criticism of Buffett's always like, yeah, the government should tax billionaires more. And then he's off using these instruments, they're allowed to. They're out there for people like him and regular people also to use. But obviously, billionaires will pay 7 figures a year for tax lawyers to figure these things out, right? The regular American does not have that benefit. But I think the big lesson here is
go
don't use a Roth IRA.
That is investment advice. Yeah, well, Trung, just to add, I've only been here for like 8 years, so I don't know the legalities of this 20 years ago, whenever he first started doing this. I don't know. And again, I'm definitely not a tax person, so you can double check this, whoever's listening. But there's normally like an income limit. Like after a certain amount of income, you're not even eligible to.
He was making 72,000. You nailed it. He as a founder, his salary was under $80,000.
And that's quite a key point, because I think a lot of people hear the headline and it's like billionaires pay no tax, right? Which is definitely, look, that's a whole huge debate we can't talk about. But the point is, they don't pay income tax most of the time because they have a $1 salary or a $72,000 salary. And so a lot of these things are based on those things. And most of them, I'm not against someone paying themselves a $72K salary. That's fine if that's legal, but it's more about like you said, the ethos of why this was created was for people, the spirit.
The letter, right? Yeah.
Exactly. So anyway, really interesting, and it's interesting that it's kind of coming out at this level. Be interested to see what happens in the next few weeks if he comments on it or whatever.
I predict he won't.
I mean, people have known about this, right? People have known about this, but ProPublica actually was able to get. So the reason why they were able to get the nitty gritty documents was they got the documents when Peter Thiel applied to become a New Zealand citizen. So they got those documents because he had to tell New Zealand everything about his financials, right? So they got a hold of those documents. That's a real treasure trove. He had to say everything he had to become a New Zealand citizen. And that's another bag of worms we could talk about, right? It's like super billionaires moving into moving to New Zealand. Well, fun fact, fan is my father went to New Zealand in the mid 70s because in South Vietnam, he was working in a hospital. He was a young doctor, about mid-20s at the time, but he was working with New Zealand and Australian doctors because New Zealand and Australians were supporting the Americans in the Vietnam War. And when it became clear that the South was going to fall to the North, New Zealand doctors got him out of the country, and he studied in the University of Auckland. So New Zealand, thank you. Thank you, New Zealand.
Respect.
So yeah, thanks for summarizing all that, man. So Callaway asked us about radical ideas and product or companies that we're seeing. So he said, what was it? You should do a weekly segment where each of you share a radical idea, product, or company you came across. This one also I probably would have to think about. But Jack, one thing you shared with us was this Carmen line thing and the Axe Infinity game. I don't know if either of those are relevant here.
Come on.
Well, I got actually an answer for the radical idea product company thing first, not investment advice. Let's start with that. But when I was in Miami a couple of weeks ago, I met this lad who's working on this music investment platform called IndieFi. And he started it as a analytics platform with his co-founder to basically predict artists that were going to blow up. So they take all the streaming data from YouTube, Spotify, blah, blah, wherever else. I think he worked at a label, so he had some insight into like what to look for and built this platform. And then I think licensed it to labels for them to, go and find artists and reach out to them and try and cut a deal. But now what they're doing is they're trying to build an investment platform where they can cut deals, like they can connect angel investors to artists on way more favorable terms than a massive label would. So, I think, and this is not a crypto company right now. I think they obviously have some legal instruments that they put in place to structure the deals, but crypto, I think, is an obvious like infrastructure layer for this eventually. But if you imagine this whole thing that we've been talking about, trusted distribution, where say I'm Jake Paul and I see this artist has made a tune I love, I'm going to invest in that song, and then I'm going to put it on my next YouTube video, and then I'm going to walk out to that at my next fight. So what I think we're going to start seeing is like Bored Apes, one example, but basically these investment vehicles to invest in like pieces of culture, so songs, art, videos, and align the incentives of creators, distributors. Like, attention is upstream from capital, all those good things. But it's called IndieFi. I think you can go on there and sign or apply to sign up as an investor or an artist, or maybe there's one other, maybe a manager or something. But they discovered Khaled. You know that guy?
Yeah, I know Khaled.
Great artist. And when I was down in Miami, he showed me this thing that there's just some like kid with a demo tape that he put on Spotify that got into the they predicted it was going to blow up, and it got into the like top 100 streaming on Spotify, which you cannot imagine the volume of traffic that
to get there
generates. Just insane. And I think Alexis Ohanian is like plays around with that platform too. He got involved in it. Dan Runcie writes Trapital.
Yeah, such a good newsletter.
Amazing newsletter. He wrote a piece on IndieFi a while back. But anyway, it just kind of really nicely complements the stuff that I've been experiencing in the NFT world that isn't necessarily, crypto native right now, but it shares the same ethos, same spirit.
It sounds very similar to everything you mentioned. We touched on about how Bored Ape could be decentralized, or like an example, decentralized Disney. Like Jake Paul buys that a portion of that song and goes out to fight on it. Genius. Right?
Yeah, and like this is I asked them for their pitch and what would you normally say to an investor? It's like traditionally like art and music and film and all of those things have been considered very dodgy investments.
Yeah.
If I told you that music is safe because you can tap into it when it has this cultural velocity, right? Like something goes viral on TikTok. I'm not saying like labels are also trying to figure out how to do this, but they're doing it on terms with artists that are, exploitative at worst and like just unfair at best, right? They're taking
the share of the pie is tiny. It's like for streamers, for example, if you're
like the amount of streams that you
Spotify.
had to, so like somebody ran like something on like the amount of streams that you have to, like Kanye had to get to make X amount. It was like tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions, right?
Yeah.
Yes, it's interesting. And I imagine that's gonna be fractionalized even further than one investor eventually, right? Like if you have 100,000 kids on TikTok that are dancing to this song and they have upside every time they publish something, you can imagine how that changes the investing landscape. And we talked about Robinhood for people before with stuff like BitClout, but it's all this like monospaced font, crypto native, like nerd fest right now, right? Versus, these beautiful platforms like TikTok where the friction is non-existent and in the same way that you get metrics on views and likes and posts, I feel like, the economic mechanics is going to evolve into all of that stuff with time.
Yeah, and also, Jack, kind of similar to what we talked about last week with DeFi, like the parallel I see here is taking that whole pie that previously went to a disproportionate amount to a middleman, essentially, and saying, well, for 10, 15 years, we've already got to the point where music is pretty much, distributed online anyway. That's where people discover music. It's even evolved more now with TikTok and, people like Drake making songs specifically for TikTok pretty much. And the streaming albums versus like old school albums with 20 songs, they're now shorter and made for that streaming format. And now if you take that idea and say, okay, now there was this huge chunk that was going to labels. And I'm not saying the labels don't provide any value at all, because I'm sure there's a bunch I don't fully understand, but probably the percentage here is not what it will be in the future. Like everything else, it's going to be more distributed. And that opens up a whole chunk of the pie for fans, like supporters, to say, not only am I buying your ticket for the concert, I'm also buying a $50 worth of, equivalent of creator coins we talked about, but like music coins for Kanye, or even better, like an up and coming artist that you want to go support. And now if you marry that with something like content ID for YouTube, do you guys know what that is?
No.
It's basically, if you upload any video on YouTube that has music in it, there's a check that happens. It's just software in the background and it scans it, and it, the same way Shazam knows what the song is in like 3 seconds, it matches it with a database and it straight away flags it to you as the uploader and says, this has got a song, Backstreet Boys, owned by Universal Music or whatever. Check this box, essentially, if you want to. It will either get taken down because they have the right to take the video down. But what they've now moved to really is to share. They get like sponsorship ad money. So all the ads that run on your channel, they will get a cut of that. So all the labels were like, great, we can actually, instead of taking stuff down, we're just going to get a percentage of revenue. So imagine that, but instead of the labels getting it, using that sort of Content ID, Shazam technology for any music you're hearing on a commercial platform anyway, regular people could potentially gain from that. I don't know if that's actually possible, but that would be kind of cool if you could do it.
Yeah, I think like it's like siphoning the massive amounts of revenue that, you know, YouTube is collecting and giving to Sony or UMG or whatever, and giving it back to fans. And if you're an artist, wouldn't you rather have 1,000 fans invested in you than some like dusty like VC or like opportunist in an office somewhere that doesn't really give a shit about your music? They just see a financial opportunity, right? And they can't accelerate the adoption of it in culture anyway. They're going to use their dollars to go and pay the people that could be investors. It's all middlemen.
So many middlemen. So many middle people.
Yeah, and
it's pretty crazy.
That like, to go back to the meme thing, that would be the theme of every meme we created, right? It's like, this is how you used to do it before, where there's a boardroom of like 900 people, and this is how we do it now. I make a song, people like it, and then the people that promote it and use their distribution to get it out there share some of the upside, because we're all making the pie bigger that way. But yeah, we could definitely get some visuals going. The Winnie the Pooh, right? It's the investor versus the capital. What was the thing? Capital provider.
SoftBank's annual general meeting they had on Tuesday, and the entire theme was, oh man, God, Massa was stroking himself. He said, capital providers are as important as inventors. And then he used the Industrial Revolution, where one of the Rothschilds gave money to James Watt, who invented the steam engine. That was actually the late 1700s. And I love how he found this story. He's like, look at this, like capital providers are just as important as inventors. And I'm the capital provider for the information revolution. That's the framing. But hilarious, man. And we should actually probably talk about SoftBank, the next one. I would love to actually talk about what has happened since the WeWork debacle, because it's been insane. And I'll leave with this is we'll tease it. But there's a passage in, I took it from the Economist article. They wrote a really long article about SoftBank. And one of the people that work with Massa is just like, it's like, how does he do deals? He goes, he's not really big into spreadsheets. He likes to feel the force of a deal.
Respect.
The force of a deal. That's a brilliant line.
Feel the force of a deal. Like he'll be on a Zoom call, and the other part of the article that was hilarious is, so every morning between 8 and 10, he just takes Zoom calls and just gives out money. He's given out, invested $200 million a week this year in 2021. So he's literally just imagine waking up, having a coffee, 2 hours of Zoom, and be like us at the end of the call. It's like, here's 50 mil for you, here's 30 mil for you, dude. Even like 200 mil a week for the first 5 months of the year, that's only $4 billion. The guy has still $40 to $50 billion in dry powder. Unbelievable.
It's mad.
Money.
Do you have another question?
Let's just do one last question. Probably a quick one though. So I guess Liam Killingstead, he said, who's the best athlete out of Trung, Bilal and Jack? This is the most random question. Like we've done. Go on.
Well, how about this? We'll answer this. What sport would you say you're the best at? Like objectively speaking, Bilal, what sport are you good at?
To play, I'd say knowledge-wise, if I was a football manager, I think I'd be great, but maybe not on the pitch.
What are you actually good at?
I was pretty good at cricket, and I know you two probably don't play cricket, so I'll stick to that one. But yeah, I played football and like racket game, like I played tennis and badminton and squash and stuff as well. But really,
let's get to the bottom of this. What's your max bench?
Wait, you're cutting off Trung.
Let's put numbers. What's your max bench?
Max bench? What? Has nothing to do with cricket. I don't even know what that is off the top of my head. It's probably
when was the last time you did a bench press?
Probably last week, but it was me getting back in the swing of it, so it's nowhere near my personal best. And I picked up like a couple of dumbbells. No, I genuinely I don't actually know. It's not a lot. It's pretty just standard.
How much do you weigh?
Bro, what are we doing here? This is getting
Oh, we're playing this game. How much you weigh?
170. I don't know. 80.
I'm about 165, 170.
Yeah.
Can you bench your body weight? I definitely can.
Oh no, definitely not. Deadlift though, got those calves going, you know.
Okay.
All right, Jack. What about you? What sport would it be, and what one are you best at?
I'm pretty, like, you can throw me on a field, I'll get in the way of people, but finesse is not my thing, man. I stood in for I played a quarterfinal lacrosse game for my university. I've never played lacrosse before, but my roommate was out for whatever reason. So I was
lacrosse, is this in the UK?
In the UK,
I didn't even know they played lacrosse there.
Broke my ankle.
Did you win?
My ankle. Yeah.
You guys win the game?
Yeah, I think they did. Yeah, but I lasted about 10 minutes because we always
he broke his ankle, so he doesn't remember.
Well, we always used to like take the piss out of lacrosse as a game. You know, it was just like we were either playing football or rugby. It's like, oh, lacrosse is, you know, soft sport, and I've been doing that for like a year. I go on for 10 minutes, and then my ankle gets shattered. So that's my sporting legacy, boys. Not very impressive.
Drunk, I feel like you got some ice hockey or something.
I have got
hoops, man. Hoops, bro. It's on there. It's on the Twitter feed. Go check out the stroke. It's wet.
I saw that jump shot was looking pretty clean.
It's real nice. Clean when there's no defenders.
Yeah, no one in your face. Go on, Jack. You about to say something, mate?
Billiards, snooker, pool. That's my sport.
Okay, I could see you being. I feel like at uni you were a killer, just hanging in the student union.
That's my sport, boys. You know, it doesn't come to mind off the top of the head, but you know, some people classify that as a sport, so I'm going to take it.
Darts? Right, what about darts in the pub?
Not great. I've chucked my fair share of darts, but not great at it.
All right, so just to summarize, me and Bilal, we cannot bench our body weights currently. There was a time when we could, though. There was a time. Lean, mean Trung at 150 was in pretty decent shape. That was before COVID-15.
I was going to say, the year's been rough. Man.
I mean, I'll say, I know it's so dark, but when people said that adding 15 pounds during the COVID-15, I'm like, man, that's pretty good. That's a good one. That's a good pun.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, and I'll just say, like, I picked the least athletic sport to be one that I was good at. So cricket. I mean, if you see, like, for any Pakistanis listening, I know there's one of you. There's a guy called Inzamam ul Haq who was like one of the best batsmen of all time, especially for Pakistan. This guy has a gut like no one's business, and he would just like finesse around the pitch, but he was so good because he didn't want to run between the stumps. So that's the way to do it. All right, boys. I know we're running out of time. Trung's gonna go pick up his kid before he gets fined. So let's.
Yeah, you guys heard that.
Hey, that was a clean sheet, I think, Trung, right?
Yeah, it's clean, guys. I didn't swear once. All right, guys, that's perfect. Thank you, and let's touch base with some of those things that we left open for next week.
Next week, that was great fun. Nice one, boys.